Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling a real head-scratcher in the art world. A painting called The Man with the Golden Helmet. It's a portrait, obviously, but for centuries people thought it was by, the Rembrandt. And we're gonna diz into why they thought that and what happened since.
Yeah, it's a prime example of how we figure out art history, how
Yeah.
it changes and all. This painting, for the longest time, everyone was convinced it was like pure Rembrandt, like textbook.
And you can kind of see why, right?
Yeah.
Just looking at it, the way the light hits, all that detail on the helmet, it just screams masterpiece, doesn't it?
Oh, totally. For ages, that's exactly what the experts thought too. Like it was even part of this big, important catalog of Rembrandt's work. Hostie de Groot, back in 1915, he was the one who put it together.
And de Groot, for anyone who doesn't know, he was like the Rembrandt expert back then. His word was like basically law in the art world. So if his catalog said a painting was a Rembrandt.
Oh yeah, you better believe it was considered the real deal. And he didn't just include this one, he even said who the subject was. He was convinced it was Adrian Rembrandt's brother. So that was it, case closed. The Man with the Golden Helmet by Rembrandt. Portrait of his brother. Boom!
Talk about official. But okay, so here's where things get interesting. It's like 1984, so almost 70 years after de Groot's catalog. And, well, a group of Dutch curators, they start looking at this painting really closely.
And this is where it all starts to unravel. These curators, they were part of like a commission, right? And they started seeing things, little things that just didn't quite add up. Like the style wasn't quite right for a Rembrandt in some spots.
Wait, so it wasn't just like a hunch they had. There were actual reasons to doubt. What kind of things did they notice?
Well, one of the big ones was the brush stroke, especially on the helmet. I mean, the whole painting kind of looks like a Rembrandt, the technique and all, but on the helmet, some parts are softer, blended together more. And that's just not how Rembrandt usually painted. He was much bolder, more defined in his strokes.
Oh, so it's like spotting a forged signature almost. That's wild. Okay, so what happened then? Did anyone jump in to investigate further since these curators had these doubts?
Yeah, that's when this art historian, Jan Kelch, he steps in, based in Berlin, and he was known for really getting into the nitty-gritty of a painting, comparing this one to tons of real Rembrandts, trying to match up the techniques and all that.
So real art CSI stuff. What do you find? Any smoking brushes?
Well, get this. In '85, after looking at everything really closely, he comes out and says it. He doesn't think Rembrandt painted it at all. Thinks it was one of his students. Probably from around 1650 or so.
Wow, talk about a plot twist. I mean, that must ruffled some feathers, right? After de Groot's catalog, everyone just accepted it as gospel.
Oh, for sure. It was a big deal. But Kelch, he had done his homework. He wasn't just going off vibes. The way the paint was layered, how the light hit, even down to those brush strokes we talked about, it all pointed away from Rembrandt, more towards someone trying really, really hard to paint like him.
Like the student who aced all the copycat assignments? Man, makes you wonder if those other artists back then, if they were even a little annoyed. Like, come on, this guy's stealing your whole style.
Right. And this is what I love about this whole thing. It gives us a peek into how art worked back then in the 1600s. Rembrandt, he had a whole studio, students coming and going, learning from the master.
So it's not even necessarily a bad thing, right? Maybe the student was actually trying to be respectful, trying to learn by almost becoming Rembrandt for a bit.
Exactly. Which brings us to the elephant in the room, or the helmet, I guess. But it's not just there for show. It's the whole point of the painting,
Can't miss it, right? It's blindingly shiny, even in person.
And to get that shine, that texture, the artist used this technique called impasto. Basically, they piled on the paint, thick layers, so it's almost 3D.
That might be a new one for some folks listening. So impasto, it's like sculpting, but with paint.
Yep, exactly. And guess who else was famous for using impasto? Rembrandt, of course. Tons of his best-known stuff uses it.
Hold on. So are we saying this student, whoever they were, they had impasto down pat too? That's crazy talented, even if they were copying the style.
The thing is, even when Kelch said it wasn't a Rembrandt, he made sure to say how good it still was. His words were, it's not a fake, it remains a great, masterful work.
Wow, that's high praise coming from the guy who basically kicked it off the Rembrandt pedestal. Makes you think, though, what happens when a painting that famous gets its name changed? Does it lose value even if it looks exactly the same?
Yeah, is it all about the name on the label, or is there something more to it? It's a debate you hear a lot in the art world. But for this painting, The Man with the Golden Helmet, It's still a pretty big deal. Like, it's in this famous museum in Berlin, the Gemälde Gallery. They've got it right out there on display.
Oh, so it didn't get, like, hidden away in the basement after they figured out it wasn't a Rembrandt.
Nope, not at all. It's still this powerful piece, people are drawn to it, the technique is amazing, and that whole mysterious vibe. But here's the thing, for all those years, everyone thought Rembrandt did it. They'd be standing there, feeling all these things about the painting, the emotion, how skillful it was. Did any of that actually change when they found out it was probably a student?
Whoa. Yeah, that is a good question. Does knowing who the artist is, does it really change how we see art deep down?
It definitely adds like a historical side to it,
Hmm.
but it also makes you think about what really matters when we look at art. Is it about the name on the little card next to it? Or is it about, how good the artist was, what they were feeling when they painted it, the story it's telling? It's almost like the man with the golden helmet, because we're not even sure who painted it now. It's making us look at it even closer.
Like it's forcing us to actually see the art, not just the name behind it.
Right. And the whole thing, it just shows you that art history is never really finished. We make these discoveries, new technology comes along, and suddenly we're looking at the past in a whole new way, new meanings. Sometimes even, like in this case, new artists get credited.
It's like a good reminder to never get too comfortable, I guess. Always be ready to look at things with fresh eyes. So hey, listener, next time you're in Berlin, do yourself a favor. Go check out The Man with the Golden Helmet. You might just find yourself staring at it a little longer, thinking about all those layers of history behind it.
Totally. And who knows, maybe you'll even come up with your own theory about who painted it.
That's the best part, right? The mystery keeps it interesting. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Until next time.